A few weeks ago, a small community of Tonga and Seatides was severely impacted by an unprecedented tornado that ripped apart lives, ripped apart families and communities, and destroyed large amounts of infrastructure, including private homes, destroyed businesses, schools, and others. But what perturbs me at this point, and I've just listened this afternoon to an appeal for donations and funding for the school, Seatides Combined School in Seatides, which is severely affected. The school has essentially been gutted. And my personal context is I grew up in Seatides on Tonga Beach. I grew up and spent 9 years of my education at that school until Standard 8, or what is now called Grade 10. So I have an intimate link to the school. I have an emotional bond to the school and the community because I grew up in that community and have relationships in that family for almost 40 years. But there's large appeals for support from private sector, from private contributors, from donors, etc. But where does one draw the line? Yes, there's an urgency, and I empathize with the students and the learners impacted by this environment. But where is government in all of this? This tornado and the impact of a natural disaster has had unprecedented consequences on the school that serves a large community in the coastal region north of Durban. But there's been complete silence from the media that I've seen and listened to and watched on government's input and its urgent contribution to rehabilitating the school, the library, and parts of that community. There's big appeals. There are radio stations, there are TV stations, there are various organizations that are raising funds to rehabilitate and rebuild the school as soon as possible because it impacts those learners across the various grades whose opportunity to go to a school is now being taken away. But where is government stepping up for this? Where is government creating alternate environments for education? Where is government's urgency in immediately focusing on renovating the school and having it restored to its former glory so that it becomes again a prestigious institution of learning? Because what perturbs me is when some communities are impacted, government then responds aggressively. But when other communities like Seatides in Tonga Beach are significantly impacted, and this you've got to understand in the context, this is a community that was ravaged by flooding, by various other natural disasters, and failures to maintain adequate infrastructure in the community. Government is still, and I can tell you I was there about 3 weeks ago, government is still slowly rehabilitating the national highways. It is slowly improving and rebuilding some of the infrastructure in that community and those areas on national highways that impact the transport systems in the coastal region, which link to the various harbors, which link to various economic centers. There's currently still massive issues with the inability of the state to provide clean drinking water, which is a basic human right, to sustain electricity and other critical infrastructure. So on the back of already persisting natural disasters and failures to provide supportive infrastructure in those communities, there's another natural disaster, and there's mostly silence from a government perspective on what it's going to do on a critical system, because those who are matriculating or finishing their grade 12 now and all other grades are impacted not just in their ability to learn and prepare for their final examinations to complete their schooling within the system and to apply to various universities and get on with their lives. Where is government providing for these community members? Where is government providing for people in that community? Because I was actively part of some of these teams. My family and I have actively contributed to some of these initiatives, but there's been complete silence from a government perspective. A lot of the initiatives are being led by the community, funded by the community, and being managed by the community. But the community has a ward councillor, the community has municipal representatives, and there are national interests in these communities, which I believe government should be prioritizing to provide and rehabilitate existing infrastructure that impacts current communities, learners, students, and people in vulnerable environments that already are trying to survive when they lack adequate supply of water, electricity, and other basic human rights. What are your thoughts, and where do you think government should be stepping up, or do you believe government is doing something or enough so that private sector can step back and wait for government to act with the speed one expects it to do? Or Is there more we can do as a community, as a society, and as citizens to put pressure and ensure that government delivers on its mandate to ensure that these facilities are rehabilitated and restored as soon as possible?